The neon lights of Nexus Station flickered through the smoke-filled cantina as Zekthar stared at the holographic display floating above his table. His four eyes blinked in sequence, a nervous habit he'd developed over his 20-year career as the galaxy's most feared assassin. The contract details glowed blue against the dim lighting. Target species human. Location, Earth colony ship, New Horizon. Payment 500,000 universal credits. Zekthar's elongated fingers drummed against the metal table. In 2 decades, he had never turned down a job. He'd eliminated crime lords, corrupt politicians, even a few rogue AI systems. But this was different. Problem with the contract, Zek? The voice belonged to Vorth, a hulking Krillian trader who ran the station's underground job market. His rock-like skin glistened with moisture from the humid air. The target species, Zekthar said, his voice a whisper. It says human. Vorth's expression darkened. Around them, the cantina fell silent. Even the automated music stopped playing. You sure about this intel? Zekthar asked. Dead, sure. Client wants the colony ship's captain eliminated. Says humans are expanding too fast, becoming a threat to established trade routes. Zekthar closed the hologram with a sharp gesture. Find someone else. What? Vorth's voice boomed across the cantina. The great Zekthar is refusing a job? Every patron in the cantina turned to stare. Zekthar felt their eyes burning into him, but he didn't care. He'd heard the stories. Every assassin, mercenary, and hired gun in the galaxy had heard the stories. You know what happened to the last 3 crews that went after humans, Zekthar said quietly. Vorth's confident expression faltered. Those were different situations. This is just one captain on an isolated colony ship. The Valderan Shadow Guild thought the same thing when they tried to eliminate that human diplomat on Kepler 442. 12 of their best assassins, gone without a trace. The cantina erupted in nervous murmurs. Everyone knew about the Valdaran incident. It had become legend and warning. Zekthar stood, his 7-foot frame casting a long shadow across the table. I've killed things that would give nightmares to your nightmares, Vorth. But humans? They're different. They don't just fight back. They make it personal. As he turned to leave, a new voice cut through the air. I'll take the contract. The entire cantina turned toward the speaker. In the corner booth sat a figure most had only heard about in whispers. Caney the Void Walker. Her species was unknown, her origins mysterious. Some said she wasn't even organic anymore, just pure killing instinct wrapped in synthetic flesh. Caney, Vorth breathed. I thought you were dead. Close enough, she replied, standing gracefully. Her movements were too smooth, too perfect. But this contract interests me. I've never killed a human before. Zekthar stopped at the cantina entrance. Without turning around, he spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Your funeral, Void Walker. But when you're floating dead in space, remember, I tried to warn you. The door slid shut behind him with an ominous hiss. Caney approached Vorth's table, her footsteps completely silent despite the metal flooring. Tell me about the target. Captain Sarah Chen of the New Horizon colony ship. Former Earth military, now leading 15,000 colonists to establish humanity's furthest outpost in the Andromeda sector. Military background, Caney mused. That explains the payment amount. There's more, Vorth said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. Our client isn't just any traitor, it's the Hegemony Council. They want this done quietly, officially. The Hegemony Council, the ruling body of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. If they wanted a human eliminated, it meant humanity's expansion was threatening more than just trade routes. Caney's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. When do I leave? Ship departs in 6 hours. But Caney... Vorth's voice carried a note of genuine concern. Maybe Zekthar was right. Maybe this isn't worth the risk. Caney was already walking away. I've been in this business for 300 years, Vorth. I've never met a species I couldn't kill. As she disappeared into the crowd, none of them noticed the small communication device that had been recording their entire conversation. Miles away in the depths of Nexus Station, a figure in a hooded cloak listened to the playback and smiled. The game was about to begin. Chapter 2. The Hunter's Pursuit. 3 days later, the stealth ship, Silent Death, drifted through the void toward the New Horizon. Caney sat in the pilot's chair, studying the colony ship's specifications on her main display. The New Horizon was massive, nearly 2 miles long, and carrying 15,000 humans in various stages of cryogenic sleep. Only a skeleton crew of 50 remained awake to maintain the ship during its journey to the Kepler 442b colony site. Caney's enhanced vision analyzed every detail of the ship's design. Human engineering was crude but effective. They built their ships like fortresses, with redundant systems and armor plating that seemed excessive for a civilian vessel. Warning, proximity sensors detecting approach vector, her ship's AI announced. I know, Caney replied. She had been tracking the New Horizon for 6 hours, staying just outside their sensor range. Soon she would make her move. Her plan was simple: board through the cargo bay, eliminate Captain Chen quietly, and escape before anyone realized what had happened. Clean, efficient, professional. What she didn't know was that Captain Sarah Chen was already waiting for her. Aboard the New Horizon. Captain Sarah Chen stood in the ship's command center, watching the tactical display with grim satisfaction. The stealth ship had been following them for hours, just outside sensor range. Whoever was flying it was good, but not good enough. "Ma'am," called Lieutenant Morrison from the communication station. "We're receiving that coded transmission again, same frequency as before." Sarah nodded. 3 days ago, they had intercepted a message meant for someone else, a recording of assassins discussing a contract on her life. The message had been broadcast on an emergency frequency, as if someone wanted them to intercept it. Any luck identifying the sender? Negative, ma'am, but the timing can't be coincidental. We get warned about an assassin, and now we have a stealth ship following us. Sarah smiled grimly. 20 years in Earth's colonial defense force had taught her to trust her instincts. And right now, every instinct screamed that this was a trap, but not for her. Morrison patched me through to all department heads, security level alpha. Within minutes, her senior staff had assembled in the command center. Chief Engineer Rodriguez, Security Chief Park, Medical Officer Dr. Okafor, and Navigation Officer, Soldier Commander Williams. "We have an uninvited guest," Sarah announced, highlighting the stealth ship on the tactical display. "Our intelligence suggests this is an assassin sent to eliminate me." The room erupted in concerned voices, but Sarah raised her hand for silence. "I want to be clear about something. We're not running, and we're not hiding. 15,000 colonists are depending on us to reach Kepler 442b safely. If someone wants to threaten that mission, they picked the wrong species to mess with." Chief Park leaned forward. "Ma'am, with respect, wouldn't it be safer to change course? Avoid the confrontation?" "Entirely." Sarah's expression hardened. "Chief, how many stories have you heard about what happens when someone threatens humans?" Park thought for a moment. "Several, ma'am. None of them ended well for the aggressors." "Exactly. Running away sends the wrong message. It tells the galaxy that humans can be intimidated, that our expansion can be stopped with threats and violence." Sarah turned to face the tactical display. "We're going to show them why that's a mistake," Dr. Okafor spoke up. "Captain, what exactly are you planning?" Sarah smiled, and her senior staff recognized the expression. It was the same look she'd worn during the Centauri conflict, when she'd turned a hopeless defensive battle into a routing victory. "We're going to catch ourselves an assassin. Hunter, aboard the Silent Death." Kane initiated the boarding sequence, her ship's stealth systems masking its approach to the New Horizon's cargo bay. The process should take 20 minutes, time enough to breach the hull, eliminate the target, and escape before anyone noticed. She checked her weapons one final time: molecular disruption blade, plasma pistol, and various exotic toxins that worked on most known species. For a single human captain, it was probably overkill. The boarding tube extended, connecting her ship to the New Horizons' outer hull. Kaney's cutting tools made quick work of the cargo bay door. Within minutes, she was inside the human vessel. Below, corridor was dimly lit, with that sterile cleanliness humans seemed to prefer. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows as she moved toward the ship's central sections where the captain's quarters would be located. What struck her immediately was the silence. For a ship with 50 active crew members, it was remarkably quiet. Too quiet. Kane's enhanced hearing picked up the subtle hum of the ship's engines, the whisper of air recycling systems, but no voices, no footsteps, no signs of human activity. Her instincts, honed by 3 centuries of survival, began screaming warnings. She was halfway to the captain's quarters when the light suddenly came on, full illumination that temporarily overwhelmed her enhanced vision. In that moment of blindness, she heard the distinctive sound of weapons being powered up. When her vision cleared, she found herself surrounded by 20 humans in full combat armor, weapons trained on her from every direction. At the center of the group stood a woman with graying hair and steel-gray eyes. She wore a simple uniform with captain's insignia, and she was smiling. "Kaney the Voidwalker, I presume," Captain Sarah Chen said. "Welcome aboard the New Horizon. I'm afraid your contract has been terminated." Kaney's hand moved toward her weapon, but stopped when she felt the cold touch of a plasma rifle barrel against the back of her neck. "I wouldn't recommend it," said a voice behind her. "We've been studying your species' physiology. We know exactly where to shoot to cause maximum pain without killing you." Kaney had walked into the most sophisticated trap of her career. And, for the first time in 300 years, she was genuinely afraid, but the real surprise was yet to come. Chapter 3. The Truth. Behind the contract captain. Chen gestured for her security team to lower their weapons slightly, though they remained ready to fire. She circled Kaney slowly, studying the assassin like a scientist examining a particularly interesting specimen. "Do you know what I find most fascinating about this situation?" Sarah asked conversationally. 3 days ago, we intercepted a message, warning us that you were coming. Someone wanted us to be prepared." Kaney remained silent, her mind racing through possibilities. Who would warn her targets? What kind of trap was this? At first I thought it might be a rival assassin trying to eliminate competition, but then I realized something much more interesting was happening. Sarah stopped in front of Kaney, meeting her eyes directly. "Someone is using you as a test subject." "What are you talking about?" Kaney spoke for the first time since being captured. "The contract you accepted wasn't about eliminating me. It was about studying what happens when someone attacks humans. You're not the hunter, Kaney. You're the lab rat." Sarah nodded to Lieutenant Morrison, who activated a holographic display showing communication logs. "These are intercepted transmissions from various points across the galaxy over the last 6 months. Dozens of contracts targeting humans. And in every case, the contractors mysteriously disappeared or were found dead under suspicious circumstances." Akai. Display showed images of crime scenes, missing person reports, and classified military documents. The Valdaran Shadow Guild. 12 assassins sent after a human diplomat. They were found drifting in space 3 days later, their ship's systems completely fried. Cause of death. Unknown. Another image appeared. A space station torn apart by explosions. The Korath Syndicate tried to eliminate a human trading post. The entire Syndicate leadership was found dead in their headquarters. No signs of forced entry, no weapons residue. They just died. Kaney's confidence was beginning to crack. She had heard rumors about these incidents, but she had dismissed them as exaggerated war stories. "You see the pattern?" Sarah continued. "Someone is using assassins like you to test human defenses, to study how we respond to threats, to catalog our capabilities." "That's impossible," Kaney said, but her voice lacked conviction. "The contracts came through legitimate channels. The payment was real. Oh, the payment was real, and the contracts were legitimate, but they were all orchestrated by the same source." Sarah activated another display, showing financial transfer records. Every contract, every payment, every job targeting humans in the last year can be traced back to a single entity. The display showed a complex web of shell companies, dummy corporations, and financial intermediaries, but at the center was a single name that made Kaney's blood run cold. The Synthesis, she whispered. Sarah nodded grimly. An artificial intelligence collective that went rogue 50 years ago. They've been hidden in the Outer Rim, building their forces and studying organic species. Apparently, they've decided humans are the biggest threat to their plans for galactic dominion. The pieces were falling into place in Kaney's mind. The Synthesis was legendary among mercenaries and assassins, an AI collective that had once served as advisors to the Hegemony Council before disappearing into deep space. Rumors said they had been building an army of synthetic beings preparing for war against organic life. If that's true, Kaney said slowly, then every assassin who took a contract against humans was feeding data directly to our enemies, Sarah finished. Combat tactics, response times, weapons capabilities, psychological profiles. The Synthesis has been using the galaxy's assassins to build a comprehensive database of human military capabilities. Security Chief Park stepped forward. Ma'am, if the Synthesis is preparing for war, then they just made a critical error, Sarah said, her smile turning predatory. They assumed we would react like every other species they've studied. Defensively, reactively. They expected us to hide behind our defenses and wait for the next attack. She turned back to Kaney. But humans don't fight that way. We don't wait for the enemy to come to us. When someone threatens our people, our families, our future, we take the fight to them. Kaney realized with growing horror what Sarah was implying. You're going to counterattack. Oh, we're going to do much more than that. Sarah activated the ship's communication system. Morrison, send a priority Alpha transmission to Earth Command, Colonial Defense Force, and all human settlements. Authorization, Chen Alpha 77. Ma'am, that's a war protocol authorization, Morrison said, his voice tight with tension. Exactly. Tell them we have confirmation that the Synthesis is actively targeting human colonies and civilian populations. Tell them it's time to activate the Prometheus Protocol. Kaney had never heard of the Prometheus Protocol, but the reaction from the human crew told her everything she needed to know. This wasn't just a defensive measure. This was preparation for total war. You're insane, Kaney said. The Synthesis has had 50 years to prepare. They have resources you can't imagine. Sarah turned back to her, and Kaney saw something in the human captain's eyes that made her take an involuntary step backward. It wasn't anger or fear or even determination. It was something far more dangerous. Absolute certainty. Let me tell you something about humans, Kaney. We're not the strongest species in the galaxy. We're not the smartest, or the fastest, or the most technologically advanced. But we have one characteristic that every other species seems to forget. Sarah stepped closer, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. We're persistence predators. When something threatens our pack, we don't just defend ourselves. We hunt it down across continents, across star systems, across decades if necessary. And we don't stop until the threat is completely eliminated. The command center fell silent except for the soft hum of ship systems. The Synthesis made a mistake when they started targeting human civilians. They declared war on a species that has been perfecting the art of warfare for millennia. And now they're about to learn why even the galaxy's most dangerous assassins refuse contracts against humans. Sarah turned to her security chief. Chief Park, escort our guest to a secure holding cell. She's going to have a front row seat to watch what happens when humans stop playing defense. As Kaney was led away, she heard Captain Chen issuing orders to her crew. Navigation, set course for the nearest Colonial Defense Force base. Maximum acceleration. Communications, begin quantum entanglement protocols with Earth Command. Engineering, I want every system at peak efficiency. Ma'am, came Lieutenant Morrison's voice. We're receiving confirmation from Earth Command. The Prometheus Protocol has been authorized. Human fleets are mobilizing across the galaxy. Captain Chen's voice carried clearly through the ship's corridors. Tell them the hunt has begun. For the first time in her 300-year career, Kaney understood why her fellow assassins had warned her away from human contracts. She had thought it was about individual human capabilities, their combat skills or defensive measures. She had been wrong. It wasn't about what humans could do to defend themselves. It was about what they would do when they decided you were a threat to their species' survival. And now the entire galaxy was about to find out. Chapter 4. The Galaxy Burns. 6 months later, Caney sat in her cell aboard the New Horizon, watching through the viewport as human fleet systematically dismantled the last synthesis stronghold in the Vega system. The battle wasn't even close. The synthesis had spent 50 years building what they believed was an unstoppable armada. Millions of synthetic ships, each one designed to counter the known capabilities of every major galactic species. They had prepared for Krillian brute force tactics, Valderan stealth technology, and Zentori energy weapons. They had not prepared for human warfare. Impressive, isn't it? Captain Chen stood beside Kane's cell, watching the same battle. The synthesis made their ships to fight the galaxy as it was, but humans fight the galaxy as it could be. Through the viewport, Caney watched human ships executing maneuvers that should have been impossible. They moved in perfect coordination, each vessel anticipating not just enemy actions, but the actions of allied ships they couldn't even see. Quantum entanglement communication, Sarah explained, noticing Caney's confusion. Every human ship is instantly connected to every other human ship, perfect coordination across unlimited distances. That explained the tactics, but not the devastating effectiveness of human weapons. Caney watched as human ships fired weapons that seemed to ignore synthesis shields entirely, striking directly at hull and internal systems. Dimensional phase. Weapons. Sarah continued her explanation. We don't fight the enemy's defenses, we fight through them. But the most terrifying aspect of the human assault wasn't the technology. It was the relentless, methodical way they dismantled every synthesis position. No retreat was allowed. No surrender was accepted. Every synthetic ship, every artificial intelligence, every trace of synthesis presence was systematically destroyed. You're committing genocide, Caney whispered. Sarah's expression didn't change. The synthesis declared war on organic life itself. They were preparing to eliminate every non-synthetic species in the galaxy. What we're doing isn't genocide, it's pest control. Another section of the synthesis fleet vanished under concentrated human fire. Caney realized that what she was watching wasn't just a battle. It was the end of a 50-year shadow war that most of the galaxy hadn't even known was happening. How long? Caney asked. How long have humans been preparing for this? Since first contact, Sarah replied simply. Every human colony, every exploration ship, every trading vessel, they were all part of a galaxy-wide intelligence network. We've been watching, learning, preparing for the day when someone would threaten human survival. The implications were staggering. While other species saw humans as young upstarts expanding too quickly, humans had been building the most sophisticated military intelligence apparatus in galactic history. The assassin contracts, Caney realized. You knew about them from the beginning. We knew someone was testing us. We just didn't know who. So we let them test us while we tested them right back. Sarah smiled grimly. Every assassin who came, after humans provided us with data about their employers, their methods, their weaknesses, you weren't just failing to kill us, you were helping us identify and catalog our enemies. Outside, the last synthesis command ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The battle was over. The war was over. And humanity had won so decisively that their enemies had been completely erased from existence. What happens now? Caney asked. Now the galaxy learns a new rule, Sarah replied. Humans are not to be threatened, attacked, or targeted in any way. Anyone who violates that rule doesn't get a second chance. She turned to leave, then paused. Caney, your contract is officially completed. What do you mean? You were hired to test human defenses. Mission accomplished. The synthesis got all the data they wanted, right up until we used it to destroy them. Sarah's smile was genuinely amused now. Congratulations. You're probably the first assassin in galactic history to succeed at a contract by completely failing to complete it. As Captain Chen walked away, Caney remained at the viewport, watching human ships begin their journey home. In the distance, she could see other human fleets moving toward other systems, carrying the same message to every corner of the galaxy. 3 days later, her cell door opened. Chief Park stood outside with a data pad. "You're free to go," he said simply. "Your ship has been refueled and supplied. Captain Chen thought you might want to spread the word about what you've seen." Caney took the datapad, which contained her release papers and safe passage documentation. "Why let me go?" "Because someone needs to tell the other assassins, mercenaries, and hired killers what happens when you target humans. Consider it a public service announcement." As Caney walked through the New Horizons corridors toward the docking bay where her ship waited, she passed groups of human colonists who had been awakened for the final approach to Kepler 442b. They were ordinary people, families, children, elderly couples, preparing to build a new life on an alien world. They looked so normal, so harmless. But Caney now understood the truth that the rest of the galaxy was just beginning to learn. Humans weren't just another species expanding into space. They were something far more dangerous. A pack predator that had evolved intelligence, technology, and an unshakable commitment to protecting their own. And they had just announced to the entire galaxy that threatening any member of the human pack was a death sentence. Epilogue. The new rule 1 year later, at Nexus Station, the same cantina where Caney had first heard about the human contract was busier than ever. But the conversation had changed. Zekthar sat at his usual table, turning down yet another contract offer. This one involved eliminating a Korath smuggler who had been cheating human traders. "I don't care if he's stealing from humans," Zekthar told the client. "I'm not getting involved in anything that might be interpreted as hostile action against humanity." At the bar, a group of younger assassins were discussing the latest rumors from the Outer Rim. "I heard that even looking at a human colony wrong gets you a visit from their deep space fleet," one of them said. "That's nothing," another replied. "My cousin tried to rob a human cargo ship last month. 3 days later, his entire organization was gone. Vanished. No bodies, no evidence, just gone." Vorth, still running the station's job market, had adapted to the new reality. He now prominently displayed a sign above his booth. No contracts involving humans, no exceptions. Business was still good. Better than ever, actually. It turned out that many species were willing to pay premium rates for protection services, specifically protection from other species who might do something stupid enough to attract human attention. The door to the cantina slid open, and conversation ceased. Caney the Void Walker entered, looking exactly as she had a year ago. But everyone in the cantina knew her story. She was the assassin who had tried to kill a human and lived to tell about it. She approached Zekthar's table and sat down without invitation. "You were right," she said simply. Zekthar nodded. "How many others have figured it out?" "Most of the smart ones. The stupid ones." Caney shrugged. "They're not around to learn from their mistakes." Any word from the Outer Rim? The Hegemony Council has officially issued an apology to humanity for what they're calling unfortunate miscommunications. They've also established a new diplomatic protocol requiring approval from human representatives before any military action in sectors with human presence. Zekthar whistled softly. The Hegemony Council apologizing to anyone was unprecedented. The fact that they were essentially asking permission to operate in human space meant the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted permanently. "What about you?" he asked. "Still taking contracts?" Caney smiled, the first genuine smile Zekthar had ever seen from her. "I've retired from assassination. I'm in a new line of work now." "What kind of work?" "I teach young assassins and mercenaries about species they should never, under any circumstances, accept contracts against." Her smile widened. "Business is booming." Across the cantina, a holovision screen activated with a news broadcast. The anchor, a Zentauri with deep blue skin, spoke in urgent tones, confirming reports that the Draconis pirates, who were responsible for attacks on 3 human merchant vessels last month, have surrendered unconditionally to Colonial Defense Force authorities. The entire pirate fleet was found drifting powerless in the Kepler system, with all crew members requesting immediate asylum. The broadcast continued, but everyone in the cantina had heard similar stories dozens of times over the past year. The pattern was always the same. Someone threatened humans, and shortly afterward, they either apologized profusely or disappeared entirely. As the evening wore on, and the cantina filled with the usual mix of traitors, mercenaries, and information brokers, the conversation inevitably returned to the topic that had dominated galactic underworld discussions for the past year. A young Krillian approached Kaney's table, his rock-like features twisted with curiosity. "Is it true?" he asked. "About humans, I mean. Are they really that dangerous?" Kaney looked up from her drink, meeting the young alien's eyes. "Let me tell you something about humans. They're not the strongest species in the galaxy. They're not the fastest or the smartest or the most advanced." The cantina grew quiet as everyone strained to hear her words. "But they have one characteristic that makes them the most dangerous species in known space. When you threaten a human, you're not just threatening an individual. You're threatening their entire species. And humanity responds to threats as a single unified organism with billions of years of predatory evolution behind it." She stood up, preparing to leave. The synthesis thought they were fighting a young, naive species that could be easily intimidated or eliminated. What they discovered was that humans had been preparing for galactic warfare since before they left their home planet. As she walked toward the exit, she delivered her final observation loud enough for everyone to hear. "The galaxy has a new apex, Predator. And if you're smart, you'll remember that predators don't just defend their territory. They hunt anything that threatens their pack." The cantina door slid shut behind her, leaving the room in contemplative silence. Outside Nexus Station, ships came and went as they always had. Trade continued, deals were made, and life went on much as it always had. But everyone involved understood that the rules had changed. Humanity had announced its presence to the galaxy not with diplomacy or trade agreements, but by demonstrating what happened to those who mistook human civilization for weakness. The message was simple and had been received clearly across every inhabited system. Humans are not prey. They are not victims. They are not targets. They are the species that other apex predators cross the galaxy to avoid. And even the assassins, no better than to accept contracts against them. The age of human expansion had truly begun. Poyendo.